to be saved for later anyway. So
Right.
once again, welcome to everybody who is joining. Uh, I'm Zar Antonov, president of Obscurium, and I have here with me.
King George 2.0 of Slabovia. Uh, Thank you for having me here today.
It's a pleasure,
Uh,
despite the technological problems, and that's why we are here on YouTube right now. George would have given his speech or his presentation on for the Digimicro Summit in the Digimicro Summit space, but um, technological issues, so he couldn't do it there. So now we're doing it as a YouTube live stream. If
yeah,
Please share the
and I
link to
know.
the live stream with anyone who also wants to watch this or who is asking themselves why George isn't presenting the space right now. So that's why we're here. And without further ado, I'm gonna hand over to George for him to give his presentation.
Thank you, Zar. I am sharing my screen. Hopefully, people are able to see that.
Yes, I can confirm that.
Excellent. Good. All right. So, yeah, what I wanted to talk about today was how to find your niche and make an impact in the micronational community. And the reason that I wanted to have this talk today is because I see the same mistakes over and over and over again with people coming into the micronational community and they want to make a splash. And there's a right way and there's a wrong way to go about it. Before we go into that, though, I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself because everybody loves to talk about themselves. I've actually been involved in micronations since the 1980s. Yes, I am very old. I've attended 5 microcons, spoke at 4 of them, and co-organized and chaired one of them, Microcon 2019 in Hamilton, which is where Zara and I actually managed to meet. Excuse me, I've got a cat around my feet. Go away. I'm a member of MicroConcom, which is the Microcon Oversight Committee that vets the proposals to host Microcon. I'm a member of the voting board or of the board as well as the voting body for the Micronational Hall of Excellence. And among other things, I am the patron of Medals, the Microphallus Educational Archive and Library of Slabovia, which I'll probably talk a little bit more about later on. So I'm pretty involved in the micronational world. Um, Now, what's the point of this talk? Well, like I said, when people get into micronationalism, they're like, "Oh, this is cool. I want to be, president of whatever, king of whatever, emperor, duke, whatever they want to be," uh, and they try to come in and make a splash. They want to get noticed, and I get that. Um, we all want to be special. We all want to be the big cheese, but you're entering a group of people who are the same kind of egomaniac. They're the same kind of, oh, I'm special. I'm the head of a country, even if it's a micronation that only exists in my backyard or whatever. So going about that the wrong way it can get you off on the wrong foot. And like the very first thing that I see that is often uh, I don't do that, let's say, is declaring war on other micronations. Um, 99 times out of 100, this is just a bad idea all around, particularly when you try to declare war on one of the well-established micronations like Molossia or Ruritania or one of those micronations, because at best they're going to ignore you. At worst, you're going to get the existing micronational community, which is quite large, thousands of people, up in arms against you. So there is an exception here. Well, there are exceptions. The exception I listed here, West Arctica invades and annexes Cal-Sahara. That worked because Archduke Travis of West Arctica also founded Cal-Sahara. Sorry, I've got that bloody cat. She's got a habit of chewing through cords, so I've got to make sure that she doesn't chew through my headset cord or this talk will end very abruptly. Um, so yeah, Archduke Travis, he founded West Arctica with somebody else. Then he went off and founded Cal-Sahara. Then he came back to West Arctica, and then in his role as leader of West Arctica, they invaded and annexed Cal-Sahara. And it was a whole thing. It was funny, actually. That's about the only time that I've seen a micronational war between two micronations actually work out. Um, the second thing I would say is don't come in and propose what we call a YAMO. YAMO means yet another micronational organization. Probably once a month in the Facebook communities, I'm seeing somebody saying, "Oh, we need to form a micronational United Nations." No, we don't. Um, they don't work because the reasons that the micronational the original United Nations was formed, which was it was the post World War II era. Um, you know, micronational war, as I've said, isn't really a thing. Micronational trade isn't really a thing. So what's the point of a micronational umbrella organization? Now, there are some that work, and the example I've given here, La Microfrancophonie, that's a great one. They do a really good job of promoting French-speaking micronations, and they're pretty active, and they have conferences every year. Now, conferences are a different thing. They're not like I know some people would say, well, isn't MicroCon kind of United Nations? No, not really. It's more of it's a conference. You come to get informed, to meet other micronationals, um, have a good time, hopefully give and receive some medals if you're lucky. Um, but it's not a United Nations. Now, the third thing I'm going to suggest is don't come in expecting to make money off your fellow micronationalists because none of us have any. You're not going to come in and get rich off of us. This is a hobby for all of us. None of us make money at it. There's only a finite amount of money to go around. In particular, please don't come in proposing a cryptocurrency. You'd be the third or fourth or fifth one this year, I think. Um, there's little to no interest in it. Um, there might be a niche of people that are interested, but it's really not an area where a lot of micronationalists are devoting their effort. Let's put it that way. Okay, so those are some examples of what not to do because they will turn the community against you in one way or another. Like if you declare war, the community will actively turn against you. If you create a YAMO or try to create a YAMO, people are just going to be like, okay, just sit down and observe for a while. And if you try to make money off your fellow micronationals, they're just going to say, okay, you're a scammer. We don't want to talk to you. So none of those end up well for you, basically. So what to do? Well, first thing to do is understand your fellow micronationalists. Like I said before, everybody in this community has an ego. We all want to be the big cheese. So don't come in expecting to be the capo de capo, as I say. Work within the community. What do I mean by that? Well, so I'm going to talk about niches. I'm going to talk about finding a space in the ecosystem. But first, understand that there are spaces within the ecosystem that you might want to already take part in. For example, there are groups for micronational stamps, for micronational currencies. There's several people like Czar who are really into the flag aspect of it. Uh, don't be afraid to figure out how to join those communities and lend a hand there. Listen to those who've been around for a while would be my third point. We've already made all the mistakes, right? We've done a lot of things. Um, we've tried to do a lot of things. We've had some things fail dramatically or fail hysterically, depending on your point of view. We've learned the lessons, so you don't have to. You can avoid some expensive mistakes by asking questions in the community and saying, "Hey, has anybody tried this?" And somebody will say, "Yeah, we tried that and it didn't work because reasons." Blah, blah, blah. So I mentioned finding your niche. What your niche is an area that is going to be of benefit. I'm going to give some examples. I'm going to talk about what makes a good niche, and then I'm going to give some examples of niches that I've been exploring, and then hopefully this will inspire people to find other niches. Um, but basically, it's a spot that is of interest to you, is going to be of interest to others, but isn't a space that is actively being explored today. There are, like, if you think about the world, the I don't know what you want to call it, the meta world, the physical world, the real world, the Uber world, whatever you want to call it, the world we all live in physically, it is huge. It is what, 8 billion people now, something like that. And they all have lots of interests and lots of hobbies and lots of aspects. And the nations they live in are the same way. There's a lot of different things that these nations are doing. There's going to be opportunities to get into um, a micronational version of that. Now, I do have a caveat at the bottom there. This is going to take time and effort. Don't expect to come in to the micronational community and declare something and in the first week be crowned king of kings or whatever. It doesn't work that way. It takes time to build up your reputation, takes time to build up trust in the community. Because another thing to remember is that in some ways, micronations are like dandelions. Many of them bloom and wither and scatter seeds and fade away within like literally a couple of weeks. But then they scatter seeds and hopefully that more micronations pop up in their wake. Because of that, new entrants, sometimes we want to wait a while and see whether you're going to stick with it. So that's another reason why this is going to take time and effort, is just to make sure the community understands that, yes, you're legitimately in this for the long haul. So I said I was going to talk about what the good niche is. So a niche is like a spot in the ecosystem for you. Ideally, it's going to be something that you're already interested in, your interests, your skills, passions, and it's not already being actively explored, right? You want to make sure that, like if you tried to build a micronational stamp community, for example, somebody would say, well, there's already one of those. Why are you trying to repeat what they're doing? Why don't you just work with them? And that's a good question. And I mean, it's possible that you try to work with them and you have a bit of a falling out. In which case, I mean, I don't have good advice there. It is going to be political at some point. You've got to learn to get along with people. Um, Something that's going to have broad appeal. Now, broad appeal doesn't necessarily mean every single micronationalist is going to uh, actively sign up and say, "Ooh, I want to be part of that." But it's something that most micronations are going to look at and at least say, "Okay, yeah, that's interesting." Um, Low barrier to entry for all. That's kind of an important thing because, as I said before, we don't have money. Many of us don't have a lot of citizens to draw on. We're not all Ladonia. What does Ladonia got? Like 20,000 citizens now, or something like that. Uh, they're just they're huge in terms of population. Versus Slavovia's got like less than 50. Versus some other micronations have like literally it's my family kind of thing. Like Molossia. Molossia is one of the biggest and most famous micronations in terms of reputation, but it's one guy in his family, right? He's not a huge micronation when it comes to resources. So that's why I say low barrier to entry. And then allows obviously for virtual or long distance participation because, well, look at this conference, for example. I couldn't fly off to Europe on a moment's notice to speak. So, it's good that this was a virtual thing. And by the way, conferences are a good niche, except that the space is starting to get a little bit saturated in North America and in Europe. There's probably opportunities for South American, African, and Asian conferences because I'm not aware of anybody operating actively in those spaces, but that might be an opportunity. Um, so the last thing I'm going to talk about some of the niches that I've been exploring. Some of them more successfully than others. A couple of these are currently probably on hold for different reasons. And this isn't so that people can steal my ideas. This is so that people can get an idea of what a good niche might look like. So what am I currently exploring or what I've been involved with? Well, the first one obviously is metals, the Microphallus Educational Archive and Library of Slabovia. Now, this website, which is microphallus.com. Notice HTTP, not HTTPS. I need to bug my web admin about getting a SSL certificate for that site. You've got pamphlets you can download and then pictures and descriptions of decorations from various micronations. And Czar, I'm sorry, but we still haven't uploaded the full set of Obscurium medals. That needs to be done soon. I need to yell at Rankin about that. Another thing that we did last year at the MicroCon 2023, we actually had a micronational cybersecurity treaty. Now, I'm not a big fan for the most part of micronational treaties. We don't sign very many of them. But the micronational cybersecurity treaty or the Chicago Treaty, which was the cyber harm intervention something agreement governing offense. It's a really cool acronym because of course, MicroCon 2023 was in Chicago. Basically, it's any country that signs onto it is saying they won't use offensive cybersecurity warfare against their fellow micronations. We will be setting up a website at some point. I've got to get around to that. That's on my to-do list. I've been working on micronational cookbooks. We actually released the first one called From the King's Table, which was a collection of my personal recipes earlier this year. I'm in discussions with a couple of other academics. In case people don't know, I'm actually working on a doctorate right now, not in micronationalism, but in cybersecurity. Hence my interest in micronational cybersecurity. But I've been talking with some other micronationals about possibly developing a micronational research journal where articles of interest to or about micronations might be posted in a peer-reviewed format. In the back of my mind, there's an idea for a micronational publishing company that's kind of on hold right now, pending resources and time issues, because it all comes down to money and time, as with everything else. And then I had been hoping to organize a micronational film festival in conjunction with MicroCon 2025. I have to make a decision on that in the next couple of weeks, but it looks like that's probably going to be on hold as well. Um, that is my presentation for today. I don't know if we have the capability for people to ask questions.
Well, there are two people watching, so if one of those two people does have a question, I would encourage them to type it into the YouTube chat right now, and I
Yeah,
shall relay to you. Let's give them a moment for that.
and again, so my purpose here today hopefully was to inspire people to, because the community becomes stronger when we all have these little ideas. Like metals, at this point, I think we've got about 20 micronations documented to some extent for their awards and decorations. But I mean, obviously, we can keep going with a lot more. Um, the treaty is a benefit to all because it's basically the one I said before that micronational war for the most part isn't really a thing. The one thing that I do worry about is cyber war, because the barrier to entry for cyber war, if you saw well, most you probably didn't see my talk at MicroCon 2023, the barriers for cyber war or for hacking are very low. You can get a lot of the information you need online, unfortunately. So it would be very easy for a malicious micronational to write malicious code and send it out to people pretending to be something else. So I wanted to kind of get people to commit to not doing that thing, and that's the whole point of the Chicago Treaty. So again, both those first two things, they're of benefit to the whole community, and that's kind of what I've been trying to do, is build the community up. Right? These niches work best when they're something that something that helps the community as a whole grow stronger, I guess would be the words I'm looking for. Okay, I'll shut up. Is there any questions in the chat?
No questions in the chat. Um,
Okay,
so that means you did a great presentation.
apparently, yeah.
Explained everything sufficiently, and I think you did a great presentation on this topic as well. It's really something that I was very keen for you to talk about, because when people start a micronation, of course there are lots of sites where you can get advice, but it's mostly like, yeah, get your flag, get your constitution set out or something like that, national anthem, um, system of government, but then stops at that, and it doesn't really go on to say, so how do you interact with the community, because there's the community,
Exactly.
and nobody,
Exactly.
or to my knowledge, nobody considers the community in those how to set up your micronation scenarios.
Well, so let me just pitch MicroCon as a member of MicroCon. MicroCon is a great way to build exactly that community, because you're going to come face to face with probably 100+ other micronationals. If you come to MicroCon in Montreal in was it June this year coming up, I think. Um, and I guess they've got the MicroCon Europe now. It's going to be held in conjunction with your Micro European Summit, MES. That's going to be what, August again this year?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, either of those conferences, um, conferences are a great place to meet other micronations. I always come away with about a zillion new ideas in my head. It takes me a week just for my brain to settle down and settle on one or two interesting ideas that I want to follow up on. So it's a great, very fertile ground, I guess, for ideas. I'm always fascinated just going around talking to people, looking at their static displays, listening to their talks. You always get a lot of ideas, I find. And one of the great things about micronations, they're a great way for you to exercise your creativity. Certainly, Czar, you've done a lot with both with flags and more recently with metals in terms of exercising your creativity. I know that Chloe, Princess Chloe of Sanctosia, I was struck when I first met her at MicroCon in Las Vegas, how much she had already done in terms of creativity, how much stuff she had for her nation. So these are very creative projects if you let them be. And I'm just showing you that, or trying to show people that, yeah, this creativity can extend beyond your own nation's borders. It can be a benefit to all. And then you get a free flow of information. You might have other people helping you out. And I just think that the whole community becomes stronger if we all work together.
You're quite right about that, and I will confirm that going to a micronational conference is indeed a great thing to do here, because that's what I did. I went to MicroCon 2019 and I came back with a bunch of ideas and a bunch of things I had learned and how to better Obscurium and how to interact with our micronations and Obscurium's development accelerated after MicroCon 2019, and just a month later or 2 months later we had our first state visit. So it really does help and work to go to a micronational
Yeah,
conference.
it's like the conferences are like fertilizer for micronation. They will help it grow so much quicker.
Oh yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way of describing it. Absolutely.
Still no questions in the chat?
Nothing. No questions.
Okay, well, that's my talk.
Yeah.
Like I say, hopefully it inspires people to go out and find a niche, either one that's already occupied but that they can help it grow, or find one like the stamps or the currency or whatever, or find something that's not already in play. Like I said, I've got a number of things that I'm working on in various stages of progress, because I believe that the micronational community is a fun bunch of people for the most part, and we get ideas from each other.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
All right. Well,
do you have any questions for me? I guess would be the.
No, I don't really have any question. I suppose you covered the topic quite well, as I said. Right now I don't have anything any open any questions in that regard.
Okay. If you could send me the link to this on YouTube after, I'd like to post it in a couple of different places as well.
Of course, I will do that. So I'll end this stream then. In a couple of minutes, I reckon, I'll do my presentation here as well on YouTube, since well, I'll check the conference room, but I don't know how many people are in there, and usually someone else is recording the presentation. I don't know how to do it in the conference room, so I might just do it on as a live stream as well.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't use the other side. It's just it was lagging so bad on my system that it was just.
Yeah, no worries. We did it here, and this is a good format as well. So thank you for coming on, and for enlightening us on this topic. And yeah.
Okay, great. Always great talking to you, Czar. Have a good day.
Cheers.